All right, today we are diving deep into the world of sports trading. We're going to deconstruct a pretty fascinating data-driven football strategy. We'll break down how it uses a simple, kind of hidden statistical flaw in the game to create a real opportunity. So what's the secret? Let's get into it.
So, let's start with a question. If you had to find a statistical weak point in a 90-minute football match, where would you even look? Where is that one predictable moment in a game that's, famously unpredictable?
And here it is. This is the answer. The first 15 minutes of a game are surprisingly quiet, statistically speaking. There's a roughly 70% chance that nothing happens, no goals. But then, look at the rest of the match, from minute 16 onward. The probability of at least one goal being scored, it just skyrockets to over 90%. And that huge statistical gap, well, that's the entire foundation for this strategy.
So, this imbalance opens the door for a method called the over 1.5 trade. Now, it might sound a little technical, but I promise, the concept is actually really simple once you see what it's trying to do.
Okay, so an over 1.5 trade is basically a bet that a match will have 2 or more goals. But, and this is the big twist, you aren't actually waiting for 2 goals. The real goal is to profit from the massive shift in the odds that happens the second that first goal goes in. All of a sudden, a second goal seems way more likely to the market, and that's exactly where the value is.
So let's be really clear about this, because it's the most important part. You're using a 2-goal market to profit from the super high probability of just 1 goal. As soon as that first goal hits the back of the net, the odds for a second one get much better, making your over 1.5 position way more valuable. And that's when you cash out. It's a really clever way to play the market mechanics.
All right, so that's the what. Now let's get into the how. Let's walk through the practical, step-by-step process of actually doing this.
The execution here is all about patience and discipline. As you can see, the first few steps are just about waiting for that perfect moment, that initial goal-free 15-minute window. Only then, once the conditions are right, do you enter the market. And the final steps are just as disciplined. The moment that highly likely first goal is scored, you get out. You cash out immediately. It's all about precision, not guesswork.
But you might be wondering, what if a goal is scored in those first 15 minutes? Well, the answer is simple. You do nothing. You just don't place the trade. That early goal messes up the whole setup, so you just pack up and move on to the next game. No money lost. It's like a built-in safety switch.
Now, this all sounds pretty smart in theory, but we need to know, does the data actually back it up? So let's get into the actual numbers that make this strategy work.
So, how reliable is this whole thing? The success of the entire strategy pretty much hangs on one key number, and that number is about 80%. That's the figure that turns this from a cool idea into a viable strategy. But what does it actually represent?
That 80%, that's the statistical probability that at least one goal will be scored in the perfect window for this trade, between the 15th minute when you get in and around the 70th minute. It's this incredibly high probability that gives you a solid statistical wind at your back and a really good chance to cash out for a profit.
And what's really interesting is that you can get even more specific. The source material suggests this works best in certain leagues. Take the English Premier League. That probability jumps to a whopping 85%. In the Championship, it's a little lower, closer to 80%. This just shows how you can fine-tune the strategy by focusing on leagues where the stats are even more in your favor.
For anyone who wants to take this to the next level, the basic strategy is just the start. You can actually enhance it by using some advanced software to get an even greater edge.
Now, these tools aren't essential, but man, they offer some powerful insights in real time. Instead of just looking at the clock, they analyze the flow of the game, shots on target, dangerous attacks, to calculate the true probability of a goal at any given moment. This can help you pinpoint the absolute best time to enter, which could mean better odds and a bigger profit.
So let's wrap this all up. What's the core idea, the philosophy that holds this whole thing together? Really, it all comes down to one word: discipline.
This quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? This isn't about getting greedy or hoping for a second goal. It's a disciplined, clinical, statistical approach. You get in, you wait for the thing that's probably going to happen, you take your profit, and you get out. Job done.
And that kind of leaves us with a really fascinating thought to end on. This whole method works by finding one simple statistical imbalance in a hugely popular sport. It really makes you wonder, what other incredibly effective data-driven strategies like this are just out there, hiding in the numbers, waiting for someone to find them?